Welcome to the pitch. This is our immersive experience. And today we're here to talk about, kind of the behind the scenes, what it takes to build a facility or an enterprise that has similar technologies that we're seeing here today. So we have control, we have broadcast, we have LED, we have XR, we have Unreal Engine, everything running this booth. And what's really important to customers, like our customers at Diversified, is that these experiences run smooth and they're scaled for enterprise. And what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about that. So to my left, I have Casey Lloyd from Crestron. Round of applause, please. Jonathan Light from Grass Valley. And Michael Diodato from BlueSquareX.
Fantastic.
And so we're going to just dig into a couple different questions. Obviously Crestron is here representing control and distribution and the different technologies they bring. And I wanted to ask Casey, as enterprises demand consistent, scalable experiences across event spaces globally, how should organizations rethink their control, automation, and management layers to balance standardization and flexibility around production and event spaces such as these?
First, thanks for having me, Adam. And Diversified, thank you. It's a great opportunity for us to showcase some partnership. And organizations today, they have a lot to think about. And, as your question stated, they have to think about standardization and flexibility in both the enterprise and the broadcast environments. And with intelligent video, cloud platforms, control going into all of these spaces, there's a lot of different disparate manufacturers that come into this. And that's where a great partner like Diversified comes in. And choosing a partner is really a key aspect of that. They also have to think about, is this a CapEx project? Is this an OpEx project? Where's the funding coming from? What kind of budgets do we have to work with? And really taking all of these into account as they're also determining the client's need, the end client's needs within their organization. So there are definitely a lot of different aspects that roll into each of these projects that these organizations are doing. But ultimately, the end goal is to make sure that that user, that end client internally within the organization is satisfied, and what that ultimate goal that they're trying to reach, whether it's simplicity or flexibility or total immersiveness within the environment. And any of those things can really be brought into any particular space, like we have here in the pitch in different areas. And it's a very complex problem, and each organization is going to look at it differently. So there's a lot of different aspects that go into it, but budget, who the partners are, and who is actually helping integrate all of these things are definitely key aspects of all of this.
Yeah, and I think, one of the biggest things our customers always ask us for is, we want the simple, easy self-service mode, right? And when you have a complex situation or system such as this, it's hard to make it, a one-button press or something similar to like a, simple touch panel to drive a Zoom call, right? So we utilize Crestron in that flavor tremendously, where we'll create multiple interfaces for the client so they have that easy to use interface, and then we can go into a production mode and really take control of the whole space. And this is what Crestron brings to the table in experiences such as these. I'm gonna now ask Jonathan a question, because Jonathan's a lot of the horsepower behind the broadcast enterprise side of things. And with broadcast workflows converging into enterprise AV event spaces, from town halls to real-time internal communications, what does broadcast grade reliability and quality now mean in a corporate context? And how should IT leaders plan for that?
That's an excellent question. I don't know if this is on, but anyway.
Yeah, swallow.
Yeah. So, I think one of the key things really is, Grass Valley are known for our, nearly 70 years coming from the broadcast, media and entertainment sectors. But really it's about bringing the lessons we've learned into new verticals. So by broadcast quality, yes, we can get into the technical detail. We are a tool maker by trade. The engineering is really important, but also it's about the lessons learned and the impact that they have. So I think it's not, we're all inundated now with high quality video, and you have to be able to stand out so that, because people have got such a high level of expectation of what they're watching, whether that's something corporate at work or whether or not, as you can hear behind us, the matches are still going on for World Cup. Everybody's fighting for the same eyeballs and the expectation is much higher. So broadcast quality really is about that consistency. So what tools do you need in place to make sure that it sounds right, it looks right, and it's planned right? Because a lot of that comes down to what we've learned with content management tools, making those workflows a lot easier. That's really what I think broadcast quality is starting to mean. And then once we get a little bit more under the hood, it's around how you select the right tools for the tier and the level that you want to work at. Every vertical has its tiers. What we're exhibiting on the booth here is some of our venue solutions with our biggest hardware solutions. But what we can do for you're mentioning more of the global aspect, and we need an engine underneath the hood that allows us to do multiple locations around the world that are easily controlled. We're now starting to see that come from our broadcast software solutions, and that's something that's easier to then transfer across into these more nuanced verticals that we are really pushing on into, so we can tailor that last 20%. In terms of the IT teams, as a broadcast vendor pushing into these worlds, there's a collaboration that we have to have. We have to understand that the security requirements are different. There's going to be a different set of hoops to jump through, but they can be overcome. We can build platforms that do satisfy that, bring that broadcast quality in, but still satisfy the IT needs.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, at InfoComm, we have broadcast vendors, right? So we can see that convergence tremendously. A couple of years ago, they weren't here, and we weren't really talking about it. And now it is part of the larger conversation, part of how we integrate all these technologies. So now that we've, kind of talked about the control and the broadcast aspect of it, of course, like in the pitch, what's the wow and the zow right out here is all these LED screens, the very cool graphics and content being driven by Unreal Engine, and BlueSquareX. Mike and his team have brought this incredible experience, I think. To be honest with you, I've walked, the floor everywhere, and this booth is speaking pretty loud. And I think it's, a lot of our customers are giving us a lot of props on how this thing came together. And, Michael, I'd like to ask you a question, as clients are investing, in DV LED, fine pitch DV LED, like you see out here, the display technology for immersive, experiential, these wow factor environments, how can enterprises ensure that these experiences are not just visually impressive, but deeply integrated with data, content strategy, and measurable business outcomes?
Thanks for the question. So, I've been doing this quite a while, 35 years. I've done the integration, done the consulting side of things, and what differentiates an outcome like this, where the experience level is high, it's elevated, as opposed to a lot of projects that we've all worked on where they quickly turned into smarts and parts or specs and drawings or whatever it was. It's when there's a champion of the cause, of the project, of the united purpose to work together. I've hired a lot of people, and one of the things I would teach them is, when you get that project, because like after the product is awarded, we all think it's just another project. You handed it to your team, but I try to tell them, what you want to do is you want to find the champion. You want to find the person that's going to help you, that's going to rally the team, the one that's going to remove the obstacles, that someone you don't have to explain the ROI to. Someone that's not going to say, well, the budget says this or the schedule says that. We all know those things exist, but I think that's the difference between, getting the desired level of experience and elevating that experience, and just having just another project, just another result. So, if you can find that person and become, united with them, link arms with them, it's going to make the whole project much better experience.
Yeah, all these displays don't mean nothing without the content, right? And I think really the connected content in the pitch and how the experiences go from space to space really flow well, and that has all been thought out very well and programmed and designed to give you that experience. Wondering if anybody has any questions out in the crowd. I know there's a lot of you out there, so don't all ask at once, but so he asked if there's any standards that can be used between broadcast and broadcast AV. Curious, Jonathan, would you like to take that?
I think that's an excellent question. But I think, yes, we're starting to see that conversation come through. I think really it's, again, it's about that tiering. And what is the primary function of a space is going to lend to what's the best solution. I do think it's interesting to see, you look at IPMX, which is effectively born out of a broadcast standard, but has been finished to some extent. It's about wrapping the extra data than the extra protocols that we wanted to see with 2110 way back. But by adding that with IPMX and starting to bring in the lessons learned from AV and replacing some of the AV technology, I think that's going to be interesting over the next 2 years. I'm still interested to see what the general adoption is going to be and the drivers for it. I think, just because we can, maybe we don't need to. But I think that's going to be really interesting. And that will allow us to more easily do those integrations in, if we've had that standard piece and perhaps it wasn't born with a broadcast AV mindset, but IPMX was used for the general workspaces. Is that going to be easier to adapt a meeting room or a lobby into something that then can be used as a broadcast media event space? But yeah, so I think we're going to see that. But for right now, I think the technologies that produce audio and video well are going to continue on the path they're on, and then that convergence piece will fall out in the next 2 years.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the large projects that we did, goal. One of the large projects we did, we actually put in 3 layers of video as a standard. So we had video over IP, we had NDI, and we had SDI. So multiple layers for redundancy, for broadcast, for enterprise distribution, and the model in the design was anything, anywhere, at any time, which isn't easy to do, right? And you're doing this all over the network, which is a serious network. And this is I'd like to take that question also to Casey, because we see Crestron as that back end IP video, and you have to integrate that into broadcast style production switchers and things like that. And I'm just curious how you guys see IPMX and 2110 starting to creep into the AV products, because we've never had that really before, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think understanding how the client wants to support this throughout their network. We're talking about major enterprise networks, and security is always going to be a key factor. Building enterprise-grade security into these products that Crestron manufactures is really a key piece of where we come from and what we're trying to accomplish for that end client. So making sure that we understand how things are going to live on the network, where they're going to live on the network, whether it's a VLAN or their major corporate network, and understanding that aspect of things is really a key aspect of this. IPMX is definitely coming into the AV spaces and making sure we're providing the necessary security protocols behind that is definitely a consideration that organizations need to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, yeah, so, I'm curious, when we start mixing these AV and broadcast technologies, on camera, right, is so important with LED technology and the content that you're using, and just trying to think of how you guys think about that, when you're creating these environments.
Right, well, we know that a lot of the times they'll be used, the LED with the cameras. And honestly, it's a mix of things. It's not just the pixel pitch and the lighting and the distance to the camera and the lens. It's all of it. And I've seen it personally where I've had the finger pointed in my direction more than once that I didn't design it right, or didn't do this right, when all it really required was for the person that loved this camera so much he wouldn't change to just talk to me about there are options. So we want to understand a lot about the environment, but we don't want to walk into day one and find out that your favorite camera and the display that we love and just installed aren't quite 100% compatible at the distance you want to be from the town. So there's a lot of factors that we want to talk about up front, so we never have to have the finger pointing or those conversations at the end.
Yeah, and one of the things Diversified is doing from that perspective is, we're bringing in the technology, we're bringing in the LED systems, we're bringing in the routing, the switching, and the cameras, and we're actually testing those off-site in mock-ups. And we're doing that before they physically go on site, so we can check for global shutter and things like that, and make sure frame rates are good, and when they're zooming in on the people, that we're not getting moire in the background and things like that, and we can figure those things out before we're on site and having to change product and content and things like that in the field, right? So we want to do that off-site, do that testing, because we do see from multiple LED manufacturers, even if their spec says something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work exactly perfect for camera A, camera B, or camera C. So how is AI shaping the AV side? Is that what your question is? Great question. Any of you guys want to take a first stab at that?
Use it to improve things, not be a leading factor of your marketing. So I think that's one of the things, probably, we have this with everything we're doing under the hood on AMP, which is the software platform. But yeah, you're integrating it in where it makes sense. So, with Framelight, which is our asset management system, our web edit tool, there are masses of benefits that can be brought in, but they effectively are brought into the workflow. It's not the driver of making sure you can stamp those two letters onto everything you're doing. So I think it's really strong. There's always going to be that conversation regarding the creative. So I think, we are very much, it's about an assistant to metadata, transcription, etc., and workflow. When we move more into the deep dive engineering pieces, especially when we've moved to software, everything is logged. It's not like the traditional hardware that we build has exponentially less logging, because that's inherent to the way it's built. When we build it in software, every key press from every user and every function of every workload is recorded, which is phenomenal until you have to go in and understand it. So what we're doing now is we're building in MCPs into the platform to effectively help with the log analysis piece. And it's a junior engineer. It's somebody that can sit and say, we have an iOS AMP manager, an iOS app called AMP Manager, and that will give you the top 10 things you need to know about. So it's much more comprehensive than a traditional traffic light system, because somebody's doing an analysis and actually doing effectively preventative maintenance, going, these are things you might want to look at, because we're starting to see a trend towards next Tuesday, this is going to be a problem. So I think that's where you apply that sensibly, rather than making it as, let's just all push on for the sake of. So that, for us, that's been one of the big things since NAB, for example.
Yeah, and I think we have to be careful as manufacturers that we're not shoving any particular AI down an organization's throat. Every organization has different security protocols and is choosing their own AI platform and AI tools. And so, similar to you, we've taken some NCP opportunities and let the client use the AI tools that they already have in-house and integrate within that to provide AI dashboard assistance. And similar to the logging that you're also providing, we are as well, to make sure that they can see what's happening within those AI assistants as things go along, to make any necessary changes, to make the functionality better, make systems simpler to use, and to make sure that any troubleshooting that needs to happen happens before people actually enter the space.
Yep, and just if I might on that, it's like I say, I think it does have a place on a development side as well, and I think that's especially when we're in the software world. So we mentioned around for us, there's a lot more broadcast vendors, broadcast AV coming into InfoComm, but one of the things for us is this is not new for Grass Valley. We've got corporate customers that we've served for 30 years. We just didn't necessarily speak about it as much as we did the big sports. But what is interesting with the software platform is our ability to adapt to that last 20%. So Diversified and our other integration partners have made our products work in other verticals for many years. My role at Grass Valley in the product team is to make us more appealing, and I can do that much more easily in software, and I can put my dev requests in for things that are not core audio video processing. They are still fully manual devs with checking, or vulnerabilities the CVE thing is a big thing in the last few months. But what it does allow us to do is say, I can have an iOS app that 3-4 years ago, perhaps we wouldn't have got to market as quickly, because we can use those assistance tools. So we can be a lot more adaptive where it's the right thing, where it's the right place to use it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that Diversified is looking at also is that we have cameras and ears in every single room now, right? So whether it's a conference room, event space, whatever it is, there's cameras and there's mics. We can utilize technology to see things, predict things, see when an LED screen might be out, a panel might be out, things like that. Use AI to provide information to us and data to us. And I also think, another big aspect of, what this pitch is, utilizing AI to generate content also, right? So most of our corporations and enterprises, they don't have the most savvy, so they have creative departments. A lot of the times they're going out house to get that, right? But, they don't want their lobby display or their theater display going stale, just playing a PowerPoint or playing some graphic, right? So we're using AI data to create experiences. If it's cloudy outside, we might have a cloudy scene on the LED screen, right, to bring that same type of environment in. If we're looking at maybe like a customer, let's say Google, and they're providing us with a bunch of data information, we could actually generate graphics and show what's happening on the web and create a graphic that makes it compelling and is telling the story for their client, to their customers, right? So I don't know, Michael, if you want to talk about AI and...
I don't think I need to add more, but I mean, the AI is obviously a huge element to where content development is going. We have the displays, we have the products, we have the software, and you talked about all these things, but the biggest impact is obviously going to be, or we've already seen, is in the content and that development. The content that was developed for this booth, most of it happened in the last 2 to 3 weeks. And that's the impact of the speed of AI. So, I mean, those are big contributors.
Yep, another question?
The question was about ROI? So I have a few opinions on ROI as well, or KPIs, or any kind of numbers that you want to come up with. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying about when you're doing the project, who's the champion? That person has to help the whole team understand what that ROI we need to achieve. Otherwise, we're just doing a project. It's vanilla. We don't want the experience to be vanilla. We want to get something back out of this. Why are we here? So you can quantify it. There's a number of ways to quantify how you're going to get your money back. For example, if you had a public space and we had to put up LED displays, and we brought in digital artwork, and there's a way to recapture those costs from the government. They'll give you the funds because it's a public artwork. So that's one path for ROI. Another path for ROI just means your accountants are just going to treat this like it's furniture, and they're going to write it off. And then there's another ROI. Maybe you're doing something where you're going to make money and you're going to charge customers. So that's the champion of the project is the one that needs to help us, the whole team, hone in on what it is we need to achieve. Otherwise, everybody's kind of just searching for the payday on day one, and we're all going home. That's not what we were talking about here. All of us up here have made an investment, and we all have our own ROI expectations from this event. This event has changed a lot. My first one was 1994. We used to go to projector shootouts, and it was very technical. Now it's a lot of this is about sales and marketing. And we all have ambitions and what we were going to spend and what we plan to get out of this. And you can see the results. There's a lot of people that were all on board when Avixa asked Diversified, and Diversified asked BlueSquare and Frustron and Grass Valley. We all wanted that ROI. We all wanted to participate. We all wanted to help.
I think if I could just, I think the ROI prompts a great conversation from how we see this coming in, going about how value is measured differently. So, because that's effectively the same, that's the same thing. What is the ROI? So we can change our models on whether it's CapEx or OpEx and keep the CFO happy. But, if we come back to why are we doing this in broadcast AV, it's values measured differently. It's not advertising corporate, for example. It's not about advertising numbers and the revenue or the viewing numbers. It's around, how can we see that impact on internal communications? How is that new CEO seen as they come on board? Or, we're moving stock prices because the earnings call was delivered badly. So I think that change in value, and I think that ties back to the ROI piece, is understanding each vertical will measure its ROI based on different value parameters. And that's been really interesting for us as a broadcast manufacturer coming into now the broadcast AV space. And even for our sales guys, teaching that there is going to be a different conversation, and it's not just going to be about what were the viewing numbers and the subscriber bases. So I think, like I said, just a point for us that we're really conscious of moving into it, or expanding into more verticals.
All right. Well, I just want to thank my guests here for showing up, and actually not our guests, our partners showing up here and helping build this amazing pitch for this great InfoComm. I think it was a great team effort. Really shows a collaboration between our companies and what we could actually deliver as an outcome, because that's really what the ROI was for us, was what's the outcome of us all coming together, right? And I feel like the outcome, we set the bar pretty good here at InfoComm 26. So really appreciate your guys' time. Appreciate your thoughts and your insight. And we hope you guys all have a great rest of InfoComm.